All right, so we've gone as far as we can go on our algebraic equations before we can get into integers. We have to review integers so we remember what we're doing with integers and exactly what an integer is. So a reminder that an integer is a number that is positive or it's negative, it's just not zero. Because zero is a neutral number, it's not positive or negative. So any positive or negative number can be fractions, can be decimals, can be mixed numbers, okay? Can be the whole numbers. But in integers, the positives or the negatives, we exclude zero because it's a neutral number. Then once we have that, you'll see on this chart on the front and top of your paper, the questions and the steps on which we set them up, or down below this on the front of your paper, I've given you the questions that we've asked, which is what I'm going to be using because that's the way I teach it. We begin with the multiplication aspect. Can I multiply integers? And that answer is always yes. I can multiply integers. Well, what do I do then? Well, I start by simply doing the math. And once I've done the math, then I have to look at the signs. And if my signs are the same, so I have a positive and a positive, or I have a negative and a negative, then my answer is going to be positive. However, if my signs are opposite, one is positive, the second is negative, or the first one's negative, the second one is positive, then I know I have a negative answer. That happens and I apply that every single time. So we're going to look at these 4 practice problems that I have you beginning with. Follow along as we go through the process. This is not difficult. It's just remembering those steps to make it a positive or a negative. Can I multiply integers? Yes. I start with doing the math. Math is basic multiplication, right? 6 times 7 is what? Well, 6 times 7 is 42. Then I look at the signs. Do I have the same signs or do I have opposite signs? The first one's negative, the second one is positive. Because there's nothing there, I know that that is what we call the understood positive. It's just an imaginary sign that I know is there. Any number without a sign is automatically positive. They are indeed opposites, so if they're opposites, then I know this has to be a negative number. Negative 42 is my answer. That's pretty easy, right? So I go to my second one. Can I multiply? Yes. What do I do first? I do the math. 7 times 3, third grade multiplication, 7 times 3 is 21. The integer aspect, well, once again, this is a positive, even though it doesn't have a symbol itself. And if I have a positive and negative, those are opposites, so I know my answer has to be a negative as well. Well, what's these crazy parentheses here for? Usually parentheses means that I'm going to be multiplying. There's nothing there to multiply with. So you're going to see these parentheses because what that's showing you is a separation between a positive negative sign and a math function. So the x is the math function for multiplication, and this set of parentheses just keeps the negative sign with the 10, so you know we're talking about negative 10. So when I do the math, I end up with 6 times 10, once again basic multiplication, which is 60. Then when I look at the signs, I have a positive, even though there's not one there, it's that understood positive, and a negative, once again opposites, so I have a negative number. Negative, negative, negative. What about the last one? Once again, the parentheses are just keeping that negative with the 5, so I recognize it as a negative 5. I do the math because it's multiplication of integers, and 3 times 5 is 15. When I look at it, though, then I have the same sign. And when I go to the idea of the same sign, then I know it's a positive number. So multiplication, do the math, same signs are positive, opposite signs are negative. Well, what about division? Am I able to divide? It's the same steps. Yes, I can divide. And if I'm going to divide, then I do the math, and then I look at my signs. If they're the same signs, I'm going to have positive, and if they're opposite signs, I'm going to have negative. So these are basic division problems. I do the math of my division, so I take 55 divided by 5, and what do I get? If I don't know off the top of my head, then I have my handy-dandy calculator, 55 divided by 5 equals, and I know it's going to be 11. When I look at my signs, once again, I don't have the positive sign. Sometimes you might, but a lot of times you won't. But I know it's an understood positive. So when I have a positive and a negative, then I know that my answer has to be in the negative form. On negative 63 divided by 9, I begin by doing the math. 63 divided by 9 is indeed 7. When I look at my signs, positive and negative, negative, positive, Opposite signs tell me that I have a negative answer. Well, here's these crazy parentheses again, and this time it's around both of these. It's just keeping the negative with the number. It's not meant to confuse you. It's meant to identify those as negative numbers. I still do the same setup. I'm going to do the math. 63 divided by 3. Once again, just a reminder on your calculators. Remember, the first one gets typed into your calculator first. I have a couple of you that are still switching that around. 63 divided by 3 then, I end up with 21. This time when I look at it, I have the same sign. They're both negatives. So if they're the same sign, then I know this answer is going to be a positive 21. You do not have to have a positive sign on your answer. I just always suggest it if we're doing integers so you don't get mixed up and confused. If it's negative, you have to have the negative sign. Division, I can divide integers. I'm going to do the math first. 8 divided by 2 is 4. They're opposite signs because that's going to be the positive. The first one's a negative, so I know I have a negative 4 as my answer. All right, so we review then the addition followed by the subtraction. Can I add integers? Yes, I can, once again. Now, these steps are a little different. Do they have the same sign? I have to recognize the sign first. If that's a yes, they are both positive or they are both negatives, then I'm going to keep the sign and I'm going to just add the numbers together. But what we're going to see a lot of times with integers is that answer is no, they don't have the same sign. And if they don't have the same sign, I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number for my answer part, and I'm going to subtract the numbers from each other. So let's look at what we're talking about on these next 4 practice problems. Do I have the same sign? Do I have the same sign? Do I have the same sign, or do I have the same sign? Okay, so when I look at it, that's a no, no, and no. This one's a yes, I do have the same sign. So on the no's, look at what I have to do. I have to keep the sign of the largest, and I have to then subtract the 2 numbers. So if I know this is actually going to be mathematically subtraction, I got to stack them, and I have to put the largest number on top. This is the only time the largest number has to be on top, is when I'm subtracting. If I'm multiplying or I'm adding, it doesn't have to be set up this way. So I'm going to subtract and I get 7, but what type of 7? So that's when I look at the largest number. It's not the largest value, it's just the digits themselves. And 14 is larger than 7, so I know my answer is going to be the positive form. When I have 33 plus 38, once again, we said no, they don't have the same sign. I know it's going to be subtraction. So if it's going to be subtraction, then I have to put the largest digits on top. 38 goes over 33, and I'm going to subtract. When I subtract 38 and 33, I get 5. Well, what type of 5? Now I look at my signs. In the digits, 38 is larger than 33, so I have to keep the negative sign, and it's going to be a negative 5. This one was the one that we said, yes, they have the same sign. And if it's a yes, what do? Well, we simply keep the sign that they have and we add them together. So I'm just going to have 39 plus 8. 39 plus 8 is 47, and they are both negative, so my answer stays in the negative form. And then finally, I'm left with 43 plus a negative 20. I don't have the same sign. And if they're not the same sign, then I know I'm going to end up subtracting them. So the largest digits has to go on top. So I have to stack it as 43 minus 20. That gives me a remainder of 23. Then I look at the signs. Out of those, 43 is larger. So I know I'm going to have a positive answer. Now the subtraction is where it gets a little bit more difficult. Because when we ask if I can subtract integers, I should say subtract and not add. The answer is no. So I have 2 steps that I have to do before I do any math. I have to change my subtraction to addition, and then I have to change the sign of the second number. Once I've done that, then I have addition again. And if I have addition again, I go through the same questions. Do they have the same sign? If yes, I'm going to keep them and I'm going to add. And if it's a no, then I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number and I'm going to subtract. So all of these are set up as subtraction, but I can't do them. So I have to go through and change them every time before I begin the math. My subtraction has to become addition. I have to change the sign of the second number. There's not a sign there, so it's positive, so I have to change it to a negative. Once I have my addition problem, then I can go up here. Are they, or can I add? Yes. Do they have the same sign? Yes, they're both negative. So then I can add them. 9 and 11 give me 20, and they're both negative, so I know my answer is going to be a negative 20. On the second one, I have 30 minus negative 38. I cannot subtract. I have to change my subtraction to addition, change the sign of the second number. There's a negative sign there. It has to become positive. You can either show the positive sign or leave it off. This takes us back to second grade, straightforward addition, 30 plus 38. Not a difficult problem. It just gives me an answer of 68. They're both positive, so I know it's a positive number. On the third one, I cannot subtract, so I have to change subtraction to addition, and then I have to change the sign of my second number. I have addition. Notice I don't have a sign on my 39. I don't have to because I know it's my understood positive. Now I go out to my addition questions. Do I have the same sign? I don't. So I know I'm going to have to mathematically subtract and then keep the sign of the largest number. So I'm going to take my 39, because it's the largest on top, minus my 18. And when I subtract those, then I get 21. Well, what kind of 21? Well, when I look at my signs, I have a negative and a positive, and the positive is going to be my largest value. So I know that 21 is going to be a positive answer. And then on 13, I have 13 minus 32. When I do my subtraction, I know that I have to change it because I cannot subtract. Subtraction becomes addition. I change my sign of the second number. There isn't a sign there. It's an understood positive. So I'm going to change it to a negative. Now I have 13 plus negative 33. I go to my addition questions. Do I have the same sign? I don't. Opposite signs tell me to subtract. So I take my 32 and I subtract my 13. When I take 32 minus 13, I get a total of 19. But what kind of 19? So now I look at my signs. My negative is the larger out of the two. 32 in digits is larger than 13, so I know it's going to be a negative 19. So these steps are not difficult, and I've given them to you on the paper in two different forms. You may prefer the box that's at the top, or you may prefer the questions in which we ask. I don't care which one you use. Just take the time and go step by step. This shouldn't take you a long time. This is a less than a 15-minute video for you to review these steps. But it's important we understand these because we're going to be doing them for the next couple of lessons when we get into inequalities. If you have any questions, come and ask. But make sure you've watched the video because like yesterday's, I was asking questions and people were not watching the videos and didn't have any idea what I had just taught. So please take the time, if I'm making the videos, to watch the videos.